Good afternoon. Or no, I'm sorry. Well, we'll go with afternoon. It's brunch time, so we'll go with afternoon. Um, Today I would like to talk about um, ignorance. I'd like to make today's subject, ignorance. We, in the last week, I've had some very tough conversations. Some very strange and odd conversations. And it made me realize something strange, a strange paradox. But then again, it's not a strange paradox because it's just strange, but when you're the only person that understands it, and that's why I make these videos so other people will try to maybe understand themselves. I had a girl tell me this week that she was upset with a guy because he asked her out, meaning that he asked to be her girlfriend or her boyfriend, and she told him no. So then later on she finds out that the guy's engaged. So she's telling me this and she's yelling, and her voice is just building and building. And her rage, you could feel the rage build against you know what I mean? When you're talking about something that you're mad about, how you just build on that. But then at the end of her rage, she'll quickly catch herself and say, but I'm not mad. And I'm like, you're mad? And then she's like, no, I'm not mad. And I'm like, then why are you yelling at like 8 o'clock in the morning? You know what I mean? But she's here telling me that she's not mad. So I'm like, that's a first note of, this person's asking me to accept their delusion rather than the reality of what's going on, what my senses are telling me. So then she goes into the story, and I say, so what are you upset with this guy for that he's engaged? If you turned him down and told him that you didn't want to be with him. She says, because I did. And I said, what? I said, what? She says that he should have known what I meant. All right, at first I thought that was like a strange occurrence. But then yesterday, I'm talking to my one friend. And he like years ago said to me, you know, Jay, I think life is all about math. And I'm like, man, that sounds like that actually makes sense. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pursue that. So I went about pursuing to see if life could be explained in math. All of my life I've been hearing about, if someone says that they can explain the word life simply, then they don't know what they're talking about. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. If they can explain life simply, then they should just be able to do so, and then the audience could make up their own mind if they can, whether or not it makes sense. Now, in terms of why we are ignorant, hence / stupid, let's just call it what it is. I'm tired of like dancing around words. That's another thing too. Our language is one of the things that helps make us stupid. Language is supposed to be simple communication. And every word created in language is to describe something or reality. First off, we're natural nerds. The only knowledge that's out there are those that our senses read. All of our senses at once are constantly scanning and searching for knowledge. That's what reality is. It's knowledge, but there are different levels of knowledge. There's garbage knowledge that has no value to you whatsoever. And then there's knowledge that I want to say fruitful knowledge, because it keeps producing value. You can go back to it anytime and it will consistently produce the same value that it produced for very first time. I'll give you an example. My friend Adam Stuck, who I haven't seen in forever, this guy comes over my house at around Christmas time. And we're having these good. I'm like, oh man, I haven't seen you in like 10 years, man. How you been? How you been? And he's telling me how he got married and all this other. Well, no, he didn't tell me he got married then. That was yesterday. But he's telling me about, you know what I mean, what he's been doing for the last 10 years. And then he starts talking to me about flat Earth, because we used to talk about like meditation and all kinds of stuff, that kind of esoteric, that level of esoteric stuff back in the day. But now he was talking to me about flat Earth, and I had heard another friend talk about the flat Earth theory before, and I realized what was going on. I remember I've always been a guy that's tried to be different from other people. Whatever I see the crowd doing, I know not to follow it, because there's something up with it. Now, I'm not saying I do that all. I did that 100% of the time, but I'd say that people who know me know the kind of strange dude I am. You know what I mean? But so he starts talking that, and I'm like, well, dude, I've been sitting in the crib just thinking about what life was really about for I don't know how long now, dude, and it's got nothing to do with flat Earth. You know what I mean? I'm telling them about the levels of scale, the different levels of scale of it repeating itself just exponentially bigger and more complex at each level, from the simplest to the most complex would be the algorithm of the cosmos, by the way. And I'm telling them about that, and I'm like, if the Earth was flat, show me a repeating level of scale in it somewhere in nature, made naturally. And well, he said, well, okay then. Well, then prove to me that the Earth is round. And this is all I said. Water, like when you urinate or when you see water crashing into each other at a waterfall, it produces what? Bubbles, spheres. Spheres. You look at your eyes, they're spheres. As my friend Steve was telling me yesterday, when you kick a basketball, it produces a little I want to say a little bump, a little round bump on it, but it's like a half a sphere. And if you think about your eyeball from the inside of your skull, that's exactly what your eye is. It's almost like someone kicked your eye, and then this little eyeball, this half a sphere popped up next to it. Another sphere in the universe. Grapefruits, oranges, the sun, the moon, the other planets. Even if you blow a bubble, it's the easiest shape for the universe to make. The sphere is the easiest shape for the universe to make. That is the reason why the Earth and the planets are the shape that they are. And I just showed you different examples of nature producing the same shape at different levels of scale. That is why I know the planet is round. Now, if you believe that the planet is flat, then you should be able to show me some kind of repeating exponentially example of that. There's nothing, no activity in the universe that happens that there is not a repeating scale of it that you could point to. That's another truth. That's an axiom. I could give you another example of this. The spiral. Because this is like my favorite one. You know what? I'll go to the ripple. Let's go to the ripple. You have raindrops hitting a puddle of water. You have sound waves. That's a ripple. You have light waves. Light travels in waves. I mean, there's all kind of ripples. You know, oh, we've already said sound waves, so I wouldn't even say your voice. But there are all kinds of ripples that are in the universe. These are repeating scales of the same process. We'll take symbiosis. Or no, let's not go with symbiosis. I already gave you an example of evolution the other day, the different forms of evolution, from symbiosis to condensation to an astronaut going out of space. These are different levels of the same, repeating scales of the same process, only at different scales, excuse me. So that's what it is. When I don't even have to hear, it's reached to a point where I don't even have to know something to to know whether it's true. The moment I encounter it, I automatically know, does it meet the formula, the universal formula? Is it a spectrum? If the person's only talking about one thing, then it's only an extreme. And this is what it is. I don't get upset at my friends for speaking, but they get upset at me for listening. Don't talk to me then. If you say something, everyone knows I'm going to say something back. If it's something smart, I'm going to respond to something smart ass, and I'm going to make sure it's at a higher level of smart ass than yours. And I'm not doing it to try to do nothing. I'm just like, that's just me. I can't help that. If you play a game, because that's a game you're playing, you're basically saying, because if I don't say anything back, then you're just basically asking me to just allow you to just say any kind of smart thing, and that just be cool. Nah, you're not my friend, so you get to say any kind of smart thing to me. Are you crazy? What are you, one of these white chicks that have a black kid so you can say the word nigger? Because that's what that is. That's basically what that is. That's asking. That's basically saying, now that I'm your friend, allow me to be able to disparage you without consequence. It don't go like that with me, man. You talk crazy to me in any kind of way, you're going to get talked back crazy too. You want respect. Guess what? Guess what you should do? That's the only way it's going to happen. If it can't happen that way, then what the hell are we talking for? Back to another thing I was saying. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'm getting tired of having to apologize for me being myself. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you think about our thoughts in terms of why we're stupid now and don't even know it. If you think about our thoughts are not in the English language. If they're not in any human language. Let me put it like that. There's a natural language that our thoughts are happening in, and they're speaking to us in. When we're inside ourselves, like Hog, my friend Jamar was talking to me about one day he posted to me about, when we're inside ourselves, our thoughts are not happening in English. They're happening in a way that we naturally understand, in a code and language. We'll call it a language, but I call it a code because that's what it is. Because that's what, if you think about it, every language is a code, but even English. But that's that's like a cipher code. But anyway, I digress. But no, actually, I stayed on point there. But it's like a code, and it's like a natural code. And this code, this is the reason why, because of this code, and because of its English not matching up, correlating directly with it, like it should, like language should correlate directly with our thoughts, but instead we've got it convoluted due to using it for purposes of control rather than for purposes of development. Because of this reason, you have everyone always saying, not knowing what they want to say, or not knowing how they want to say what they want to say. There we go. Because of this problem, you have everyone knowing what they want to say, but not knowing how to correctly say it. Did that make sense? Does anybody else have that problem, or is that just me? Or, you know what I mean? That's what I notice is going on. So it's like, we know exactly what we're saying. We know exactly what we mean, but it comes out misinterpreted. It's not misinterpreted out of your mouth. It's misinterpreted by the other person. Because if you live by yourself, it makes sense. But because you're trying to make the other thoughts, you're trying to put your thoughts in your head into the next person's head, you have to put it in a way that they can grasp it fully. And that is hard when you got a language that is deliberately obscure. That is very hard to do, and that's the reason why you have the country constantly at odds with each other, because none of us are speaking exactly what we mean to say. Then you pour this thing called political correctness on top of it. You put patriotism on top of it. You put fear and insecurity on top of it. You put love on top of it. You put all of these false dogmas, societal dogmas that we've created. Because these aren't natural dogmas. These aren't natural paradigms. These aren't natural Yeah, we're gonna go with paradigms until Skiz gives me another word. I have no other word to use right now, Skiz. They've left me no more preferred, favorable word to use in the English language right now to replace paradigm. I could use model. Or template. All right, let's go with template. It sounds like temple, but you know what? We'll go with template. I'm good with that. Yeah, there's no other, because of that, it ruins all kind of communication, and that's the reason why that's one reason why we're stupid, is because of our language, our communication. It's deliberately obscure, vague, and oppressive, frankly. The next part I want to get into is, don't forget that we're born ignorant. You're not born knowing anything. You're born mimicking everything. You're born wondering about everything. And because you're mimicking and wondering about everything, you've grown up copying people who did not know themselves because they were born ignorant and copying and mimicking another ignorant person and other ignorant people. That's what life is all about. Life is about mimicking people up until you can get to the point of where you can survive for yourself. But really, it's not just about survival. Survival, to be complete, is also about thinking. You have to, because the very point to being a human being is to be cerebral. This is what makes our minds, is what makes us special. A human being that is not thinking, I am sorry, if you do that equation, you are not being human. Am I not wrong or right about that? If your mind is a natural calculating machine, we don't have claws, we don't have fangs, we don't have any kind of weapons that these other beasts out here have. Is this not our weapon? Is this not our natural weapon that nature has bestowed upon us and endowed us with to fight in this wilderness? Forget society for a moment. It wasn't always like this. We didn't always have walls to protect us from nature. There used to be a time we had to survive from real beasts out here, not just the beasts of ourselves within our society that we've created, by the way, because we're not naturally like this. But when you put all these impractical expectations upon people and actually have them believing that that is what they're supposed to be doing in life, simply for the purpose of being able to steal their value from them and have them laud you for your ego and stroke your ego, then you end up with the society that we have. You have a whole bunch of people that were born questioning and are convinced now that they should not question anything, that everything is already figured out, even though they know what that means. Figured out is not, oh, everything's open for interpretation. We're all entitled to our own beliefs. I've already proven that. There's a previous video of that. We are never fully figured out. We never have things fully figured out. The universe is so vast that we're always going to be constantly trying to solve what's going on. That's the reason why I made sure that I focused on the fundamental part of what's going on in the cosmos. All the complexities that are built off of that can be explained simply by figuring out how did it all start. We are going through time where no one knows about history. Think about this. I moved to America from Jamaica at 9 years old, and I know about more about American history than most Americans. How is that possible? Think about that, because I'm telling you right now, there's no American that can move to Jamaica and know Jamaica's history better than a Jamaican. That it would be an impossible. Like, they teach us that, so they drill that into us. So it's like which means that they must purposely up here drill half information into you. Because, and if you go through life not knowing what your childhood was, because that's what history is. I keep trying to tell you that we're like, you should look at our generations of all growing out of each other. Because there is no this generation without the last generation. And there's no last generation without the generation before it, and so on and so forth. So it's all basically one. The past sets up the present, and then the present sets up the future if the future is realized. But the future is never really realized because it's always the present. You're always in the present. This is the reason why they can't, when they say, oh, like the concept of going back in time, time travel, it's impossible. It's impossible. I could precede their BS right now. It's impossible. Let me tell you why. Physics operates on a dual dichotomy set of physics. Once again, the spectrum. There's extremes that are going both directions at the same time, simultaneously. That is the reason why they can't go back in time. There is no going back in time. It's not just let me go backward that way. Like, while you can look deep in space and see the light, and the light that comes to you, it's a procession from the past. At the very same time that's happening, a counter effect is happening. That's how the universe stays balanced. The universe is all about balance always. Anything that you see, like gravity, there has to be anti-gravity. Black, there has to be white. Red, there has to be blue. Like that kind of thing. Like there has to be opposites to any object or occurrence or action in the universe for that action to be. That's just what it is. That's the truth. That's an axiom right there. You know what I mean? And we naturally know this. That's the reason why you have civilizations of the past that built such marvelous structures and came up with such great things. Like, think about Socrates, more than 2,000 years ago, said how crappy democracy was. 2,000 years ago. Plato, over 2,000 years ago, says that in order to have a republic, in order to have a certain type of government, a government that you can control a certain way, you have to give people a human God. This is over 2,000 years ago. And this is a guy that studied in all our universities and colleges. So obviously he has an influence on our society today. Now, what would make a man say that to have a republic, we're going to have to give the people a human God, if there was a human God? Why would he even say that if he didn't already know that God was not human? They already had high-level knowledge back then because human beings are natural nerds. Our emotions cloud our judgment. Think about every time you make a bad decision. When does it happen? It's not while your judgment's clear. Think about that. Our emotions are like, they're put in the game. They're there that they kind of help us, but for the most part, they're there to confuse you. That's why you have to surpass your emotions. If your emotions were there to balance or to calculate things, then it would be your intellect. But your emotions aren't your intellect. Your emotions help you perceive, or help you perceive the information and data coming that your senses are intaken from reality. And then they pass that information on to basically your CPU, which would be your intellect, that makes the decision on how to understand, how to accept this, comprehend and accept this as knowledge. How am I to perceive this? Oh, this person's being angry with me. Are they really, or are you just being letting your emotions decide that? That kind of thing. I want you to know that the reason why you can be preceded too in your actions when you're an emotional person is because if you already know what makes people emotional, kind of like if you already know all the rules of chess, then you can already anticipate what the other player is going to do ahead of time before he does it. It's the same level of scale, bigger and a little bit more complex, but the same principle. That's why you have repeating principles just at different complexities in everything. Like, when I say I'm the smartest, I am not saying it to brag, but it's because I have like analyzed and realized that everyone I listen to, I'm smarter than them. They're talking everything people say that I notice people say, they have no basis to it. They don't feel they need to explain it because they know they haven't thought about what they've said. It's just cool to be able to say things. That's the reason why you have "it is what it is," um, and things like everything's open for interpretation, and things like you're allowed to believe your own beliefs. That allows that kind of thinking and that kind of communication to become pervasive, to where it encompasses the whole society, and now we're all basically saying things to each other that no one has to prove. And when I say it to you, when they say it, and when we're saying things to each other, we expect the other person to accept it. Do not question it. Well, guess what? Now we're not a society of human beings. Is that not fact? If the purpose of being a human being is to be cerebral and intellectual, and we've got a sign, which is why we're curious in the first place, which is why every kid is born asking question after question after question, and as we become adults, it's not because we grow out of questions. There's still plenty of questions. It's because you're told and taught and conditioned over again and again, non-stop. Stop questioning. They made the Riddler a bad guy. He's not a good guy. Why would the Riddler be a bad guy? The Riddler is the one human. He's the most super of all the super. Forget the superheroes and supervillains. Just all of them encompassed together. That's why I choose to. That's why it's my cover picture. Question. That's what makes us human. Another thing I examined was, all right, well, a lot of people have said, I looked up I read through a lot of the philosophers, and I even noticed a lot of, when I was reading through history, I noticed there was this farmer, man, something Farnsworth, this farm boy that was 15 years old and barely went to school back in like the early 1900s. This dude was looking at his farm and looking at rows of corn, and thought to himself, if I like did something with electrons and ions, I could make a speaking radio or a video radio. He was the dude who created the TV. A 15-year-old kid. Natural nerds. And by the way, don't think that's a coincidence either that he came to a great idea by looking at a row of natural lines. Well, I won't say natural lines, but they were like rows. I'll get back to that. Let me go back onto why the limits of knowledge. So I thought to myself, man, there's a lot of people who've said a lot of truths before. They weren't consistent in their truths, which I guess lent skepticism to what wasn't true. But no, that's not what it is. People should be able to discern between, okay, well, he's right about that, but he's wrong about that. We can't just discount a person's truths because of they were wrong about other things. No, they're right about what they're right about. What's right is right. If they say the sky's blue, the sky's blue. Just because they, you know what I mean, do say something else, and that turns out to be completely absurd, doesn't discredit or make incredible what they said previously, the aforementioned. Or the former, excuse me, whichever, you know what I mean. But the limits to knowledge, I don't care who you lay it down to. It could be this is why even college professors are stupid. I'll even say that's why I challenge, and this is why I know I'm the smartest man. I prove it right now. Because everyone is looking at everything. Everyone considers everything based on layers of triviality. Race, religion, nationality, sexual orientation, courtesy and manners, all hygiene, all kinds of layers are in between actual reality. And that's what it is. I just cut through all of that and just look at life as what is really what's real, what's fake, and what's real. Because our thoughts are real, but they're invisible. Air is real, but it's invisible. So some of the machinations in nature, just because we don't see them does not mean that they're not real. That's what we seem to forget. Like, and this brings me back to the row of corns. The row of corn that my dude was looking at. Rows of corn. You got solid, then you got invisible, basically. Solid, invisible, but they're all rows. If you lose something, what do you have to do in order to find it? Retrace your steps. If you go up a road, you can go back down that road to get back where you came from. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's how, like, when we look deep into space, we're looking down a line. And when we're thinking about the future, we're looking up a line, up the road. Excuse me, we're looking down the road, we're looking down the road. But guess what? The road is already there. See what I'm saying? That's time. Time is already there. There really is no past, present, and future. It's already there. It's just you going up and down it. That's all that's happened. There really is no time. It's already there. We're looking at the future like we're waiting for it to materialize. It's the possibilities just await for you to walk into them, into those lines, into your line, and then keep coherent and decide on a coherent line. You're making that coherent line, but it's already there for you to make, basically. So another reason why I would say that we're very ignorant is that we are in the information age. Never before in human history has knowledge, which you've heard from your young, that education is key and that is the true wealth. Really, health and knowledge are your two excuse me, health and knowledge are your two biggest weapons in life. Health and knowledge are your two biggest and primary weapons in life. Forget a gun, forget a bad attitude, forget, oh, I'm not taking nobody's stuff. How far has that gotten you? Health, knowledge are the two biggest weapons, assets. Forget a house, forget a car. If you don't got those two things, you're not going to hold on to any of those other stuff. We'll go right there with that. And that's the reason why in a society that's capitalistic, in which the top echelon, which are really the weakest and unelite and unbrilliant, most unbrilliant people in the country that's running us, the sexual perverts, deviants, known as the 1%, they're just basically, let me put it like this. Which way do they say poop runs? Does it run upwards? We're acting like this for a reason. Society is like that because they want it to be this way. I was thinking about something yesterday too. I wanted to bring back about why another example of why the forefathers were being so sarcastic when they said that you can overthrow the government if it ever became a tyranny. If you'll allow me to go off topic just for a moment, I'll come back to the stupidity and ignorance thing in a moment. But this one I thought was it will lay that case out completely. Why, when they wrote that clause, they must have been laughing and high-fiving each other. Case in point, the Whiskey Rebellion. During the Whiskey Rebellion, George Washington was like this whiskey baron. This dude was like monopolizing whiskey. And he like taxed all the, whatever plant grows whiskey, whatever plant, I guess corn, whatever it is that you can turn into whiskey. he like started taxing these people like super crazy, and those people were like actually here in Southwest Pennsylvania, and I guess running down this line, this mountain trail or whatever, this mountain range or whatever, and the people thought that tyrannical. Now remember, this is George Washington, one of the dudes talking about if your government ever becomes tyrannical, you can overthrow the government. And so all of these dudes are still alive. Benjamin Franklin, all these forefathers are still alive during a moment of tyranny. Now this is the people, the masses in Southwest Pennsylvania got together, and they were ready to defend, go on the offensive about this. So George Washington, and this is how we got a central government. This is what was like the makings of the central government, the feds, the federal government, to centralize power. George Washington gathered up all armies in all the other states and came down this way. And Southwest Pennsylvania did a smart strategy. Dispersed. Surrender is sometimes, when it's the best strategy, it's a put it like this: surrender is a strategy. Don't let stubbornness have you do something stupid. Surrender is a strategy, and in the right situations, it is the best strategy. It is an ideal strategy. So people shouldn't look at people as surrender as a bad thing. It's a strategy. Look at it that way. It's a strategy. If there's no choice, there's still things to be done in life. It's not about pride all the time, or what you perceive as pride. Pride is that's emotional too. That's built up in emotion. That's not intellect. So that's a clear example of why, when the forefathers said that you can overthrow the government, and that's during their time, and a clear example during their time of them conducting themselves in a tyrannical way, like merchants, doing monopolistic tendencies, and when the masses rose up to show dissent about this, they were quickly, the hypocrisy came, coalesced. It came forth. It rose to the top. It was obvious. And that's why, if it starts that way, get me? I was 40. I'm 40 now. If I look at a picture of when I was 30, it's still me. I just look a little different, but I also look the same. You look at a picture of 20, I look a little different than when I'm 30 and 40, but it's still me. I look the same, but I still look different. If you look at a picture of when I'm 10, I look different, but it's still me. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. You've just got, you can't, what we've done, we're locked in a cycle of, not the more things change, we're locked in more of a cycle of the more we stay the same. That's the reason why the movie Groundhog Day is made. That's the reason why you have movies like Alice in Wonderland being made. We are repeating, there's hints. The universe has, that's why this is a game. Think about it. Why is our mind, why do we have a mind that thinks? Why aren't we like the other animals? Why are we allowed to think? And then why all these other things? The universe is all a clue. That's the reason why our senses is always looking for that information. We're supposed to be seeking this truth, and there's clues everywhere as to what the universe and life is really about. That's why I can explain everything by pointing to something else in the universe. It's self-explanatory. It's self-explaining. You know what I mean? It's like, it's nothing complex about it. Let me put it like that. I like to point to Stuck's example because it's just the best, man. When he told it to me, it just quickly, I was just like, wow. He said that a black hole is no different than our iris. And if you think about that, that is so true because no light escapes our iris. No light escapes a black hole. If you know how the dynamics of how 2 plus 2 works, then you automatically know why it equals 4. It becomes self-explanatory. But when I say something and I'm talking about something that you don't understand, even though I might explain it as simple as possible, you won't understand why it equals 4 because you don't know the dynamics of 2 plus 2. So then, because you don't know that, instead of bothering to, in the information age, go to your smartphone and go to Google and see if what I'm saying is true, or looking up and researching European history and researching your own history and researching history period and looking into what the philosophers thought and realizing that, hey, my senses are always looking for information. Even gossip is knowledge. It's just bad knowledge. It really has no bearing on your life. It won't teach you anything in the future. I mean, you already know that people have bad relationships. You already know that money corrupts people. You already know that these people don't really look that good at that age, that they're paying for that. You just want to keep telling yourself, I wonder if. You know what I mean? Like, we already know that Michael Jordan is not the same type of player as LeBron James. We just want to make an argument because it gives something to distract the people. It gives something for us to distract ourselves. You know what I mean? That's why I hate small talk. Because it's like voluntary stupidity. Hey, let's talk about something stupid real quick. How are you today? How do I look? You know what I mean? Like, so how you been? I just saw you yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, it's just silly things that we have no business even needing to speak about. That's why they say, oh man, you don't ever beat around the bush. And that's the whole point. Why are we beating around bushes? Why does that need to be a human practice? Like, explain that to me. Where in our algorithm, in our playbook, why is that a necessity? What is the contingency to that? The only way that makes sense is that it helps with control and division. I'm looking through the playbook. It's not in the art of war, but in my mind of thought, yes, that's a strategy. Just like retreat. Just like surrender. Excuse me, I was born in a town called Retreat, so I've always wondered why it was named that, but I'll tell you what, I think that's how I came to the truth of surrender is a strategy, a good strategy. In the times of necessity. But anyway, and they know that too. They know that you will employ surrender if they could provide the right conditions for you to surrender. Like, I get why people don't get this concept of that we're all still slaves. You know what I mean? Like, because really, they put forward this, black slaves thing. But if you think about it, rednecks, you've been serfdom this whole time. You've been a serfdom this whole time. During slavery of black people, you were out there too. You know what I mean? Like, life has not been easy for you. There's always been a 1% control in the country. That's why I don't trust bikers that claim that they're 1%. You know what I mean? Wait a minute, you really don't run anything. So you're more like how the J. Edgar Hoover ignored the mob. Same deal. You know what I mean? If you know anything about that whole situation, how J. Edgar Hoover basically let the mob have carte blanche on the streets for like 40, 50 years. The FBI did that. Oh, what mob? What mob? What? You know what I mean? Like, and then boom, all of a sudden you want to go after them, make it all look good, and then what do we have now? Now we have terrorists to take up our once again, it's simple mathematics. If the police know where all the crimes happen, they know where all the drug spots are, they know who's doing what. You remember Eric Snowden? Remember what Eric Snowden told you what they can do? The police know all of that. If they could solve all crime right now if they wanted to, only not the precog, excuse me, that's by a Tom Cruise movie reference. Only not like rape and things like that. The crimes of passion, things like that. But like the crimes that are in progress, like kingpins on the corner and all, kingpins doing their thing and all that, they know all that already. But you know the reason why they don't solve all that at once? Because then they would have nothing to do. It's all mathematics. They want to call it logic. It's not logic. It's math. It's math. It's all coherent. That's what makes math so beautiful. Math copies everything, all the functions and machinations of what the cosmos is doing. Every action that you see going on around you in the cosmos is a repeat of the overall structure of the whole thing, just happening at different levels and different scales from different and different complexities. Like my friend asked me today, he was like, why is there a sun that has blue light and ours has yellow? I said, you already know the answer to that, because I've already told him the formula to the universe. Extremes, and in between those extremes are different segments that lead up to both extremes. Like how you'd have white, light white, this, you know what I mean? Different gradations complete the whole spectrum. So the same way how you have a sun that has yellow, there's a sun that does red, there's a sun that does purple, there's a sun that shines blue, there's a sun that, you know what I mean? Like that. That's why you have races, different colored races and all that. That's why you have different type of species of squirrels and, I mean, of everything, trees and anything you could think of. Like, why am I the smartest man in the world? No one else is telling you this. That's why. Am I charging you? Do you got to come to a university? You know what I mean? Am I making it all complex? Am I using big 4-syllable words? You see what I'm saying here? Why is that? Why? How can I explain these things and make it make sense? And I don't have to say all these today in the Daily News. What do you think about what Trump did in Syria? It's fucked up, dude. That's what's that's what it is. You hear Brian, this dude, Brian, what's his name? The dude that lied about he was on a helicopter. You know what I mean? Talking about, yeah, it was dangerous. We was on the helicopter that got shot down, and somehow I survived to make it here to tell you the story. But Pat Tillman didn't, right? But Brian, not Gumble. It's not Gumble. NBC dude, man. He's on MSNBC now. Brian's, oh, man. Anyway, you know who he is. He's got real nice hair all the time. Got his hair always nice and well done. Anyway, that guy. Always tan. What's his... Anyway, this dude, he says, the first night of the war, right? Boom, the ships are launching our bombs. This dude looks at it while the screen's going, starts showing it. He's like, we're watching the beauty, the beautiful scenes and the beautiful embers. I'm like, what the hell is this dude talking about? What beauty is he talking about? We're blowing people up. Like, what's he talking of our weapons? And I can think of a quote right now of someone saying that we find our love in our weapons. So not only are you like revealing right now that you're some sociopath, dressed in a suit, hair real nice, look real good, and you got an MBA and all these good things, and because you make big money, you're credible for saying sociopathic shit. If I say shit like that, oh, you're like, oh, this dude is a fucking psycho. If I go and say, oh, that was beautiful, I look at some explosions and say, that was beautiful, look at how we're blowing up all those people, that's beautiful, our weapons, that's the beauty in our weapons. You'd be like, yo, this dude has lost it. But Brian Williams, that's his name, Brian Williams, MSNBC, you could Google him saying this. The first night of the Syria strike, this dude is saying this, talking about, oh, this is beautiful stuff. And I'm like, wow, yo. He's influencing kids watching the news right now, having them think this is beauty. What is our fucking national anthem? Rockets, red glare, bombs bursting in air. Do we hear ourselves? There is power in the blood, power in the blood. Like, what are we teaching our kids? And talking about, you don't know what you're talking about, Jay. Like, no, dude. There's a reason why capitalism, democracy, and empire flow together. They're all exploitation that are always looking to grow. They're all based in fallacies. There is no trade. If you think about the word trade, it's basically a raid. They used to raid places back in the day. What do we do now that we call trade? It's countries that we've raided, and they're forced to trade with us. You know what I mean? Like, that's what's going on. Oh, like, to me, when I think about it, if we came up with a nuclear bomb, how does all these other countries have it? How does North Korea have a nuclear bomb if we came up with it? How did Russia get it? How did Pakistan and how did all these other places get it? But yet nothing's happened. There's been no nuclear war. How is that possible? Well, if the rich control the world and they have all this time, then that means they're all working together. We're watching a soap opera, people. Let me finalize that point with this. I want you to think of us being the defiant rebels that we are. Big Sand, you know what I mean, Lacey, Crystal, these are all rebel type of people I know. You know what I mean? I got that same kind of spirit. I'm just oppositional defiant. You know what I mean? Motherfucker, I'm not gonna do it, even if it's the right thing to do. I need to find out the hard way, you know what I mean? Now think about that. And then you see the bomb get dropped off at Nagasaki. You see what happens at Hiroshima. What happens to your balls then? What happens to your ovaries then? I don't care how tough you are. You see some shit like that, a mushroom cloud that you ain't never seen before. You've seen explosions like dynamite sticks. But you see some shit like that on TV and you're the leader of some foreign country that's been standing up to the US? Man, you fucking all of a sudden start pissing yourself uncontrollably. The phone rings, you know what? The phone doesn't even ring. You're picking up the phone. Yo, I'm telling you, there is nothing going on here that's serious. This whole time, all they've been doing is conducting a war against us, the people. That's all they've been doing all around the world since World War II, is conducting a war against their own populations. The empire controls the world. There is only one empire in the world. These are facts. Look them up. We're in the information age. You don't have to take my word for it. I'm not asking you to believe a word I say. I just say look it up. Put the math together. It's simple kind of stuff. If you're not trying to question anything, once again, you're being disingenuously human. If you just want to say things and not have to look up or research what you're saying, when you have the benefit of a smartphone at your fingertips with Google right there to answer anything, you know what I mean? Like, you're being disingenuous as a human being. You should exclude yourself from any conversation, and don't be emotional to people that is asking questions. If you're talking, I'm gonna ask a question. If it makes sense, I'm gonna say, hey, that makes sense. If it sounds stupid, you can't get mad at me. I'm being human. Let's work on it, people. We can't just claim to be the bravest country, man, because that's what we're doing. We're frauding. We can't claim to be intelligent beings because that's what we're doing. We're frauding. You know what I mean? We can't claim to be the wealthiest country. Then why are there ghettos? Why is there Southwest Pennsylvania and the whole mountain range down to Kentucky so poor and have been poor since the Whiskey Rebellion? Is that coincidence? That's a repeating pattern of the same behavior. We are being deliberately oppressed. It ain't just black people, it's poor white people. It's anybody that's not a billionaire, you are being oppressed. The top, though, none of those people up top, I'm going to say the top 50%, they're too invested in the system. No matter what truth you come to them with, they'll react to it with emotion, because that is the limit of knowledge. No matter how smart and how much I lay out the structure, as long as you're emotional, you'll never get it. You have to be unemotional in order to see clearly. Like I said, when are bad decisions made? When you're unemotional or emotional? Think about your own life, your own experience. It applies to everyone. The government, they get emotional. Do you think they never make bad decisions? Well, we know this, but no, actually, you know what? You actually think that they make bad decisions. No, actually, they're making decisions that are completely intelligent for them. Because the system is capitalism. So it does benefit, it is beneficial to them. And it's not just them, they're wealthy donors. And really the wealthy is who control. When I say government, you know, the government's just a tool for the wealthy. Billionaires should not be getting respect. Those are our enemies. Those are our sworn mortal enemies. They are like a virus that grew out on our toe. That's what they are. They're like a toe virus. That's what they like grew over your toenail. You know what I mean? They're that crud that after like years of just letting it grow and grow and grow. That's what the wealthy are. You know what I mean? Just because they're all glittered up does not mean they're pretty. You see how these people live. Donald Trump, think about that. You've been born rich, dude. What's your issue? I've been getting oppressed all my life. And I'm the smartest man in the world? Make sense of it to me. I'm signing out, man. Y'all are natural geniuses. Stop being voluntary idiots. Peace and love.